Let me tell you something, when you come back from a long, peaceful trip up in Montana, all you want is that bone-deep quiet, Not the kind that makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck, but the good kind, the kind you earn. But that day I pulled into my driveway and knew in 3 seconds flat something was wrong. The world was too still, the birds too careful, like they were all waiting for me to notice what had been done while I was gone. Yeah, this story's got everything: fraud, fake signatures, the queen of all HOAs, and a shack that nearly cost a woman her freedom. Buckle up. So there I was, killing the engine, stretching out my back under the pines, thinking about those elk we spotted up in Red Lodge, when I glanced over at the lake and just stopped breathing. There was a brand new wooden shack, fresh cedar planks, still shining porch swing, damn Weber grill, the work sitting there like it had grown up overnight. 80 feet from my dock, right on my shoreline. At first my brain tried to make excuses. Wrong house prank from the neighbors. Did the lake sprout a rental cabin out of pure HOA arrogance? But no, it was real. And boy, it was smug. I wandered closer, thinking I'd find some explanation tacked to the door. Maybe a lost dog notice, or... Sorry, we thought this was public land. Instead, I found a wooden sign burned deep with Lakefront Shack, reserved for Ridgewater members only, and a shiny QR code nailed below it. The Ridgewater Preserve HOA logo staring me down. You ever scan a QR code out of sheer disbelief? It took me straight to a website booking calendar full every summer weekend. Green, all under a banner expansion pilot program. They'd been renting out my land to strangers while I was gone fishing, grilling even a blow-up flamingo bobbing in the footage from my trail cams. Strangers sleeping on my side of the lake right next to the fire pit I built myself. Let me back up a sec. This property has been mine since before Ridgewater was a twinkle in a developer's eye. I bought it because it was outside any HOA's reach, and my boundary markers. They're older than most of the houses in the subdivision stone buoys, set back in the 50s, every inch surveyed and registered. I had a folder thick as a phone book that said this was my land, no debate. So what the hell was Ridgewater HOA doing out here running a lakeside Airbnb off my hard work? That night I didn't sleep much. The wind coming off the water, usually a comfort, just sounded like trouble rustling through the willows. I watched more security footage, groups pulling up in kayaks, kids running up the dock, even a couple making s'mores where my dog used to dig. The next morning, I loaded every legal document I had into my bag, drove straight to Ridgewater's Glass Palace, and walked in like I was going to war. Their lobby was all fake smiles and fake palms, cold enough to store fish, with a lady at the front desk who could probably freeze water with her grin. I said I need to talk to whoever thought it was smart to install a shack on my property. She dialed up her boss and outswept Karen Miller. Yes, that Karen tan as a handbag blazer, salmon pink eyes, hard as river rocks. She greeted me like she was expecting a delivery, not a fight. Mr. Hadley, so glad you stopped by. Let's talk about the lakefront cabin. We sat in her glass-walled conference room, surrounded by photos of paddleboard yoga and barbecues, none of it mine. I slid a map across the table, my boundary traced in red, the new shackway inside. She didn't even blink. Well, there's some confusion about that shoreline. It's a gray zone. We're working with the county. She started spewing HOA lingo about community access and temporary use, offered me a check for $1,500 as a goodwill gesture. That had barely covered the repairs after all the parties they'd thrown on my beach. I told her straight 48 hours to stop all commercial use, or I'd see them in court with the sheriff and enough paperwork to choke a horse. Karen tried to talk unity, inclusivity, said, "No one's trying to take anything from you." I just laughed. That's what they always say right before they take everything. She never lost her smile. I called my lawyer Leah, sharp as a tack and twice as stubborn, and by noon we'd filed for an emergency injunction. She took one look at my folder and said, "You're lucky. Most folks lose before they start. But Karen, she won't go quietly. That night I got obsessive drone shots, GPS overlays, plat maps, old deeds. I wanted more than a win. I wanted proof, the kind nobody could ignore. Here's the twist: down at the county recorders, I found blueprints and permits with a forged signature. Not just any name mine, but misspelled. Greg Hadley instead of Grant, in a big loopy hand, nothing like my hard block letters. They'd faked consent forms to get the project greenlit. That moved us from civil squabble to outright felony. Laya's eyes went wide. If this got them money or permits, we've got criminal fraud. We took it to the sheriff. The sergeant almost laughed. HOA, huh? Thought they just argued about mailbox paint. Not this time. I brought in an old friend, Rick, a surveyor who'd seen more dirty tricks than a Vegas card table. He resurveyed the whole shoreline and the shack, 27 feet inside my property, right on a protected buffer zone I'd registered as conservation land. Rick gave me the data, and we filed a police report for fraud and trespass. It gets better. That night, while reviewing footage, I spotted a group in reflective vests at 3 a.m. Contractors sent by Ridgewater tearing apart my dock and stapling fake public access notices to my trees. I threw on boots and charged out their mag light in hand and caught them in the act. Sheriff showed up cuffed, 2 of them, confiscated their blueprints, plans for Southwest Sector clearance signed by Karen herself. Suddenly, Ridgewater was scrambling, claiming rogue contractors hiding behind vague statements online. Meanwhile, I blasted every detail onto Reddit with drone photos, legal filings, and arrest videos. By sunrise, 75,000 people had seen it. News stations called lawyers, DM'd, even a real estate attorney joined the lawsuit against Ridgewater for fraud. Karen finally cracked, stood at a press conference, and blamed confusion and historical ambiguity. I watched her on live stream, flipping her off every other minute, coffee in hand. The court, finally fed up, slapped Ridgewater with a demolition order. Marshals and the sheriff rolled in. Karen tried blocking the road with her Lexus Marshal, just handed her the order and gave her 5 minutes to move. By sunset, the shack was gone, ground, jackhammered flat. I posted the footage, one HOA's trash permanently removed from one man's land, and the internet went wild. But Ridgewater's rabbit hole was deeper than anyone thought. Renters came forward, payments to a shady LLC, bookings handled off the books. Even other homeowners whose boundaries had been accidentally redrawn by Karen and her board. A zoning hearing exploded. Turns out they'd used forged names for more than just me. A guy named Greg Halley, completely different person, stood up and said he'd never signed a thing. The board crumbled. Karen's own allies started resigning, emails leaked, and the IRS opened an investigation. The real kicker, County Patrol, showed up at Karen's house one Saturday, unmarked SUVs, a Marshal, with a folder thick as a tree. She barely got the door open before the cuffs went on calm. No drama, just the end of the line. News headlines: forgery, tax evasion, consumer fraud, attempted land seizure, kickbacks. The HOA board quit, a class action lawsuit landed, and the county took over Ridgewater's finances. I got a formal apology and a settlement offer, turned them down. Instead, I demanded my shoreline be permanently protected as a nature reserve. Got it signed, sealed, locked down, planted wildflowers, put up a steel sign, no HOA, no rentals, just ducks and warblers and me. Best part: that shack is now a patch of green, and my land is more protected than ever. And if you're wondering what happened to Karen, last I saw her, Lexus hadn't moved and her kingdom was just a punchline on every local podcast. I even got a little wooden model shack in the mail, burned inside with "Not Your Property." I tossed it into the fire pit and watched it burn. So what do you think is justice? About paperwork, a good lawyer, or just the stubbornness to stand your ground when they try to rent out your life? Let me know in the comments if you'd have fought back or just taken the check. And hey, if you've got a story of your own, drop it below. Subscribe for more wild tales of HOAs gone wrong, and tell me, where are you watching from tonight?